My name is Kyle LaFond, and I'm the founder of American Provenance. American Provenance is a manufacturer of all natural personal care and wellness products. The company was actually born out of my time as a middle school and high school science teacher. I was increasingly concerned with all of the chemical-laden products, personal care products that my students were using, and thought that they deserved better. So basically, I designed this project kind of on the spot one day, where I modeled for the kids how to make their own personal care products without all the harsh chemicals, preservatives, additives, fillers. And that quickly became the most popular project we ever did. I had kids that I was going to have in class not until the next year, maybe even 2 years following, that would approach me at lunch and say, "Hey, Mr. LaFond, are we going to do the deodorant project?" And, it was just a great experience. And at that time, the state of Wisconsin required what was called a PDP, a professional development program, or personal development plan, basically where you charted the remainder of your career, what you wanted for continuing education, what you saw as like career advancement. And it was a very lengthy process, and I really didn't feel like doing it. So at that point, I thought, I've got something pretty special here. So I wrote the business plan for American Provenance. We launched in May of 2015. And in just over 4 years, it's really taken off to the point where we're now in, my light just went off. we're now in over 3,000 retailers nationwide, with our biggest customers being Whole Foods and Hy-Vee. We also do a ton of business online through our own website and Amazon.com. We've grown to the point where we moved off my family farm where everything was first launched. And now we're in a 6,000 square foot production facility. And then I have a 2,000 square foot warehouse space just down the road that houses all of our cardboard and packaging and everything else. We now have 15 employees, and we're adding people and products. And geez, it seems like every other month. So we're scaling and kind of in that high growth mode. So very fortunate to be where we're at, and we got a lot of things coming up in terms of investment and growth and transitioning to become even more and more of a household name nationwide. So yeah, very exciting stuff ahead of us.
Nice. And I'm just hoping your lights went off due to a motion sensor as opposed to losing electricity. And okay, just making sure. Okay. I mean, I deal with startups all the time. So, the possibility is, we blew a fuse. I'm sorry, Keith. We don't get electricity until October now.
No, that's part of us being a very green company. We've got motion sensors on all of our rooms. So basically when a room is not in use, after whatever it is, 90 seconds, the lights go out. So.
All right. Which actually, so this is, and there we go. We moved and then here we are.
We moved and here we are.
So you raised an interesting point there. And this is something that comes to my mind as a consumer of personal care products. The environmental aspect of what you're doing. Tell me about the decision making that has gone into where you are on that spectrum.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we first started off, we were kind of trying to decide that very same question. Where do we spend the bulk of our dollars? Is the bulk of our dollars in terms of making stuff, is that spent on high quality ingredients? Is it spent on green packaging? Is it spent on expensive labeling and packaging? You name it. And for me, understanding my background and how I've always been focused on quality in anything and everything we do, we decided to spend the bulk of our dollars on quality ingredients, finding and sourcing the best, highest quality ingredients we could find at a reasonable cost to include in our products. So we chose very consciously from the start to make that kind of our central spend. Outside of that, when we talk about packaging and labeling, I've always been turned off by companies that use kind of expensive and shiny and different stuff just to attract people in. So we wanted to go with something that was very basic, yet had both a name and a component of art to it as well. So all of our products do have unique names and brands and artwork, but that was all done on our own. It's nothing where we've paid astronomical fees to have, shiny, gold-plated, silver-plated labels. It's been very basic. And then to the last point, packaging. So for us, originally I wanted to start off with green packaging, but as a startup company, funding is always an issue. And when you take a look at pricing for green packaging versus conventional plastic packaging, It's nowhere even close. So for us, just by way of example, now that we're buying in lots of 50 to 100,000 deodorant tubes at a time, our average cost for a deodorant tube is, I think, like 22 cents.
Okay.
Whereas we do offer some green packaging in biotubes, which are fully recyclable, compostable, you name it. Those actually cost me $2.27 a tube.
Wow.
So,
10x difference in
yeah,
materials cost. Okay.
it's crazy. And one of the things that we've thought about, we thought, we want to, of course, we want to get away from single-use plastics as much as anybody. So our plastic, our recyclable, we do have actually a program in place now where we'll accept deodorant tubes from anyone, any other manufacturer, any other vendor, and we'll recycle those for you. With our green packaging, I wanted to have that available, but unfortunately, as a small business, we can't absorb that full cost. So we try to split it with our consumer. And it's actually fascinating. There's been a ton of stuff written about it out there about how much folks are willing to actually spend to save the planet.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very fortunate. I actually have a gentleman from Kimberly-Clark. He's a former executive vice president of Kimberly-Clark on my board of directors. And he was telling me years ago, Kimberly-Clark, they looked into it, and doing all the research and analytics and everything else, they determined that the average consumer wasn't even willing to spend more than 50 cents on a green package. So it's really tough to justify using all green packaging when the consumer is asking the manufacturer to bear the cost burden rather than sharing it. So I think that attitude's changing, though. I think folks are now coming to a point where they may be more willing to share costs and maybe more willing to pay a little bit more for green packaging. It's just like anything else. If you think about computers and cell phones, right? The first generation stuff is always the most expensive. Then as it becomes more widely used, widely available, of course, the price comes down. So I think that's what we're going to see with green packaging. So with us being one of the few manufacturers out there that actually offers green packaging, we're kind of leading the charge. And hopefully there are more regional and smaller manufacturers, even some of the large manufacturers that come on board and do the same thing. Because what we really need, we need these large manufacturers to fully embrace green packaging. Once the large manufacturers fully embrace green packaging, of course, the price goes down, and then we can all take advantage of it. So what I'm really waiting for is some of these big guys, some of the Unilevers, some of the P&Gs, some of the J&Js, SC Johnson, L'Oreal, some of these folks to really get away from that and transition to green packaging to make it more affordable for everybody.
Gotcha. Okay. So this leads us to an interesting discussion in that you're a startup, 15 people. And how old is the company?
Just over 4 years. We launched May of 2015, and now it's September 2019. So yeah, 4.5 years.
All right. So we're at 4.5 years, 15 people. This is different from the stereotypical image we have of a startup, right? This is not 3 people huddled around their app or their website, right? This is packaged goods. This is a very physical product. You've already talked about how, well, we started on a farm and now we're in an actual warehouse space. You're doing things that take up physical space in real life in the world. What is a different challenge that you face in this regard that the 3 people in their app don't have to deal with?
We're not sexy. So.
Well, we're going to do a poll. We're going to associate a poll with this video somehow. We're going to get the consumer's opinion on that statement. But go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, the big thing for us is, nobody wants to talk about deodorant, right? Deodorant it's not very appealing. It's something that people need, but they don't want to discuss. They don't want it to be kind of an open part of their personal life. When we look at our average consumer, and this is, I hate to stereotype and I hate to kind of like pigeonhole people, but when we look at our consumers, what we find is that in store, brick and mortar, our consumer base, it's probably 70-30 women to men. Reasons for that, women, again, very stereotypical, women typically buy all the household goods and all the personal care products. When I ask guys what kind of deodorant they wear, whatever my wife grabs.
Okay.
All right, that sounds fair. The other guys that tell me that they don't want to spend time in that area of a brick and mortar store, because oftentimes where you find deodorants and personal care products, you're going to find tampons and lube and condoms, and guys are embarrassed by that kind of stuff, right? So
heaven forbid we be found in that aisle.
Heaven forbid. So guys are really reluctant or hesitant to actually walk down that aisle. But then what we see is just the exact opposite online. We see our customer base switch 70 to 30. 70% guys buying stuff compared to 30% women. And again, it's that whole notion of comfort and secrecy and being able to order products like this within the privacy of your own home. So for us, it's absolutely fascinating to see how things break down. So we do battle that whole not being sexy thing.
Right.
The other thing kind of related to that is you look at typical startups, especially here in Wisconsin. A lot of these startups are geared around software, technology, healthcare, stuff that may have high growth potential, stuff that all these investors know about. And for some reason along the line, manufacturing has just kind of lost its way. We're very fortunate, and I'm very proud to kind of be the guy that tells folks that, Wisconsin has always been a top 5 manufacturing state. Even though some of the larger, bigger players have scaled down or maybe even folded, there are still a ton of small and regional manufacturers, mid-sized manufacturers, making a lot of great quality products here in the state that nobody knows about. So part of my message is bringing back the fact that, a startup doesn't need to be tech-based. Like you said, it doesn't need to be 3 folks sitting around a computer or on a cell phone developing an app. A startup can be a handful of folks that are just passionate about a product, passionate about a market segment, and really want to grow something into something special. So I think even though our products may not be sexy, I think the passion that I bring and my full team brings to creating healthy, natural alternatives to widespread commercial stuff, I think that really shines.
Okay, so you raised an interesting point in there, which is the next question that I wanted to look at. Okay, so we're not sexy, we're not building an app, what have you, but a point where you absolutely do have some commonality with any number of other businesses. You're selling online. You deal with Amazon. You deal with users through a web purchasing interface of some sort. Tell me about that experience for you as a small business owner, emerging business owner. How do you get into that space? What are the resources that you need to be successful in that realm?
Yeah, there's so much stuff to say there. It's kind of crazy. For us, I was very deliberate about how I grew the company. I realized that there are a lot of other small and mid-size personal care and wellness companies that were launching online only just through e-commerce channels. So for the first 3 years, I actually focused just on brick and mortar. I wanted to establish kind of a baseline for our products. So when people jumped online to our website, they could see, oh, hey, they're already at that retailer or at that co-op or at that pharmacy or at that grocery store. Great. That means the products are legitimate. Then when we transitioned and really became more of a player online, that's when we decided to stick, basically $250,000 into digital marketing and advertising. And what we did, we decided to basically go strictly single channel, Facebook to start. Now we're omni-channel. Now we've got all kinds of different ways online that we sell our products. But for us, when we first launched online, Facebook was huge. So we got to a point where we had some ads that were high performing, getting a really good return on ad spend. So as long as we were getting a return on ad spend that justified, continuing those programs, we just kept on pumping dollars into it. So when we first started our initial digital campaign, we started at like a 3x ROAS, which is really good for our space. What's happened though, every time Facebook, has an outage or changes their algorithm, things get more expensive. I like to joke around about how Facebook, they just print money, they do. I mean, for a small company like us, typically we're spending anywhere from $25 up to maybe $100,000 on Facebook ads per month.
Whoa.
So I can't even imagine how much some of these larger companies are spending on Facebook to get their products out there. And Facebook has become more and more competitive as a lot of these larger companies have realized, hey, there's an audience there. There are more people we can sell to. We've got the financial resources and means. We can pretty much try to dominate this space and jack up pricing and push these smaller guys out. Yep. So Facebook has become very, very competitive. With Amazon, Amazon's kind of a funny beast. We've gone the route now where we do FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. So basically we ship them pallets and then they just place replenishments and we ship them pallets again. One of the things that we're doing right now, the next probably 4 weeks before we really get into the bulk of the holiday season, is we're trying to find an Amazon broker. We're basically they would do all of our advertising on Amazon for us and pretty much handle all the logistics. Because for us, we never viewed Amazon as something that's entirely necessary. But on the same kind of token there, Amazon's a platform you need to be on because that's where a lot of folks, of course, shop and buy everything. So
Yep.
what I kind of look at Amazon at is kind of Amazon's icing on the cake. It's nothing that we're entirely reliant upon. It's a nice revenue stream that actually we have to do very little to acquire. So yeah, online and Amazon, I prefer to sell through our own website. There is a strategy there that I've employed that is a little bit different from a lot of other manufacturers.
Okay.
So what we do online, our prices are actually a little bit higher than they are at brick and mortar. And our brick and mortar partners actually appreciate that because I'm trying to force people to pick up our products in store and help our retailers out. So when someone's in store, and I see this happen all the time, they've got their phone in one hand, they're looking at the price on the shelf, and they're looking on the online price as well. So
Guilty. That's me.
exactly. So if these folks see that the online price is higher, of course, yeah, they're going to pick up there in store. So that was a very legitimate plan that I put in place when we arranged our pricing and kind of tried to figure out how we're going to have them both the brick and mortar channel and the online channel for sales.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. I hear you saying, listen, this may not be something that I rolled out of bed 4 years ago saying, you know what I want? I want to spend a ton of time on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
But it absolutely is, in this day and age, not a channel that you can ignore. I get it.
Yep.
So what is something, given my perennial interest in all things people,
Mm-hmm.
when you hear the term people challenge in your role as a founder, as a CEO, what comes to mind? What's something that you deal with?
Well, let's see here. So there's so many ways to go about that. And I think, I go back to Lee Iacocca. I remember this years ago when I read it. He always said that you should hire the most intelligent and talented people you can find and get out of the way. And I think that's kind of been my strategy with all of our employees. Basically, I've been able to find people that are very well spoken, very well educated. And again, going back to passionate about not only our products, but passionate about the lifestyle that we're trying to portray and trying to share with folks. I think the big thing for me and what's probably been most difficult as we've grown this company with our employees is letting go, letting go and delegating. Because as a founder, of course, you want to be involved in every aspect of the business.
Sure.
But as you grow and scale, you simply can't do that. So it's come down to, again, finding people who are very intelligent and very talented and just letting them do their thing. I go back to Kevin Conroy at Exact Sciences here in Madison. And I heard him give a talk a while back about how everyone within an organization should have 3 priorities. And if you have more than that, you really don't have any priorities. So that was pretty inspirational. I came back after that talk and basically sat down with all my team members and said, all right, let's identify 3 priorities for everyone. These are the things that you should be working on. And if we ever get to a point where we stray from those priorities, I can reel folks back in and say, hey, how does this relate to the 3 priorities that we agreed on? So kind of having that as a baseline, as a background for my employees has been wonderful. Greater people challenges. Let's talk about customers. How about that?
Those are people, usually.
They are people. It's kind of funny. I was talking with Steve Schlecht, who is the founder and CEO of Duluth Trading Company here in Mount Horeb. And Steve told me that if it wasn't for people and customers, business would be great.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought that's a classic line. I'm going to use that, Steve.
Absolutely.
So he's identified his 2 people challenges there. In terms of customers, one thing that we've really had to focus on is our customer experience. So we now have a full-time customer experience manager on site, and basically it's her responsibility to take a look at all of our social media sites, be it Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it, and basically respond and reply to folks that have inquiries about our products, our processes, our company, you name it. So it's kind of crazy when you think about her role really didn't exist 10 years ago. Of course, customer service existed, but
right.
Managing these online portals, these digital portals where people openly and freely comment about your products, your process, your people, like That's difficult, and we've got to stay on top of that. So we're very fortunate that Amanda, she's checking in morning, noon, and night, basically looking at comments and responding, because people today, people have no patience.
I know, no.
There have been a couple times now where someone has posted something on our Facebook page and demanded a response within 15 minutes. Unfortunately, it's just not the way the world works. We're very but yeah, managing people's expectations, customers' expectations in terms of how quickly they want to reply or what they want to hear. And sometimes just pointing out to customers, and it's a very difficult conversation, but pointing out that, hey, maybe their thoughts and their beliefs are wrong. That's been kind of challenging, because I think there are a lot of folks out there that are kind of set in their ways. You talk about different age customers. You talk about folks that maybe, late stage career, maybe retirement. Those folks have a lot of brand loyalty. They've bought the same products from the same companies over and over again for years. When you look at early stage professionals, recent high school or college grads, there is no such thing as brand loyalty anymore. They can buy a product and it can work wonderfully, but instead of going back and buying that same product again, they look for something that's different, shinier, newer, you name it. So trying to bridge that gap and address both audiences, one that is a loyalist and one that is always looking for something new, is very challenging and very difficult. So we have to have measured responses whenever folks jump on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and ask us questions, trying to figure out where they're coming from and how we can best meet their needs.
Gotcha. Okay. So I hear you talking about people challenges in a few different ways, one of which internally, we've got 15 peoples on board, but also externally, typically in dealing with products associated with armpits, you'll be dealing with people. And how do we interface with them? What are the expectations in the year of our Lord 2019 for interacting with the company online? And how do we cope with those while maintaining the brand we want? All those sorts of things. Totally get that challenge. So I want to be respectful of your time. Let me do this by way of closing. Let me ask you, and this is coming out of the blue, and I'm asking you to do it in a very succinct manner, so that's totally unfair. I'll do it anyway. Imagine that you're speaking to someone who is just starting their own company. They're 3.5 years ago you, and they're dealing with any number of challenges. They're looking down the timeline here, going, wow, I don't know how I'm going to hire my first handful of employees. I don't know how I'm going to raise funding. Any number of things. What's a piece of advice, a piece of wisdom that you would share with that person that, wow, has been meaningful to you, hard-fought wisdom that you have gained that you would share with past Kyle?
Oh man, there's a couple that come to mind right away. And the first one is, don't spend too much time thinking about yesterday. Yesterday is gone. Whatever happened, we can't change. We got to move beyond that. Good, bad, ugly, otherwise. I think a lot of companies, when they first start, maybe they spend a little bit too much time reflecting or looking back, but you can't. I think one of the monikers for me is, forget the mistake, but remember the lesson. Nice. So again, that goes back into hindsight. Like, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to stumble. We're all going to have challenges that for one reason or another we don't overcome in the way we wanted to. But it's important to remember those, learn from those, and not make those same mistakes again. And I think for us, that's been a really good way to go about things. I mean, there are lessons that we learned launching a company, especially a company where we have physical products. You learn a lot right away. I think, and I've told this to numerous other folks, that you should actually be embarrassed of the first products you put out there, because you're going to get that immediate customer feedback and you're going to change things. Too often I see companies waiting to have the perfect product, the perfect software, the perfect technology. And oftentimes they wait too long, they run out of money, and things go belly up. So I'm one of those guys where I just think, hey, let's do it. Let's put it out there. Let's make our mistakes. Let's learn from it and have better products moving forward. And we've seen that in the development of our own stuff. We've tweaked formulations. We've changed labels. We've taken a lot of customer feedback And that's kind of another thing too is, I hear everybody, but I don't really listen to folks unless they've been there themselves before. Um, you know, Opinions are like, let's say, noses. Everybody's got one. So it's nice to hear people and understand that they're interested in the company, interested in the products, and they're just trying to help. I get that. But unless you've been down that road before yourself and you've done some of these things, you've experienced some of these things, it's really tough to take whatever you're saying without a grain of salt. But someone who has actually built a company from scratch or multiple companies from scratch or experienced tremendous success, like those are folks that I really want to listen to and delve into and pick their brains on. So I think the big things are number one, like again, don't focus on the past, focus on the future. And then find people that you can talk to, kind of confide in, that have walked similar paths that can help you out. Mentors are awesome. I've got a couple mentors, and the value they brought to both myself personally and to the company has been tremendous. I can't put a dollar value on that. So yeah, seek advice and help where you can.
All right. All right. Fantastic. Really appreciate that. And thank you so much for taking a chunk out of your morning to share with me here today. And certainly hope that you and I get to talk again soon.
Yeah, that sounds great, Keith.